Hey, welcome you guys. This is our live show. This is the Dr. G show. I think episode 70 kajillion. Been doing this for a couple years now. Today we're going to be talking about cholesterol and really the cholesterol myth and why the cholesterol myth is killing you and your family. So as we go through this, please as you join, like the program, please share this with your friends and family. And otherwise, it's an interactive discussion. I know last week we had, actually last month, we had a really good time because we had special guests. And I think we're going to do a lot more of that. So that was pretty exciting to hear from other people, like real, actual people, like their struggles, what they went through, and that they got out of it, like they got their whole lives back, which was amazing. So that was, I think we're going to do that again. So we'll have to find a lot of really unique, complicated cases for you guys too. We had Sarah on here, and she was a wonderful guest, and she got lots of good feedback. But she had autoimmune disease, and nobody could figure it out, and just everything's falling apart, and her life goes to shambles. And then all we do is just kind of do that basic protocol, get things back to where they need to be, and suddenly the patient's fine, right? Everything's back to normal. And then the same thing with Amy, who was a great guest, and of course, she had a huge story where she was just basically falling apart with Crohn's, and then now she's Crohn's free. And then we had Jenna, who's a kid, and she was awesome enough to come on and tell her story. Same thing. She had Crohn's, everything was falling apart, she wasn't growing, developing, and then all we did was the basic kind of lifestyle medicine protocol, and now she's got her life back, and she's taller than her older brother, which is pretty awesome, right? On this feed, we're doing something a little different. I always do this by my phone, and Chad Hastings and Pat Hastings came in today, and they gave me a bunch of scobies, which is awesome. So we're going to have another workshop. She's very generous in offering me those. And she always has these big, thick, like scobies, like amazing scobies. So you can see on here, like each one of these is like an inch or two thick. Like she has the most amazing ones. So I think she feeds a meth, maybe. So we'll have another workshop. So usually I do this by phone. They came in, and Chad has suggested I do it by the computer, and I didn't think I could do that. Sure enough, it worked. So let me know. I want to hear your feedback too a little bit on this and see what the quality is like, because I don't know. So we'll see. Anyways, it's better because there's a wide view as opposed to before there was this little short view. All right, so we had really good testimonies. We'll do some more of those. Last month was the 15 years of miracle patients. Today we're going to talk about cholesterol and the cholesterol myth that's killing you and your family. And I want to say hi to a few people here. So Carolyn, hi. Amy, hey, good, see ya. And Susan. Say hi to Alex for me. That's awesome. He's watching too. I'm glad you guys are joining and sharing this with your friends and family. This is a really great topic because this is one of those things that, man, it just baffles the mind of why we do the things that we do sometimes in America when it comes to trying to fix people but causing more problems in the process. So the cholesterol myth, some of you guys have probably heard about this, but if this is new, this should be pretty profound information for you guys. And please feel free to ask your questions. Okay. Ask your questions. I'm going to follow the feed over here. And so if you guys have questions, let me know, and I'll try to answer those, interact with you guys. So first of all, what the heck is cholesterol, right? And then we'll talk about, does cholesterol kill you? I'm going to give you a hint. No, it doesn't. It doesn't kill you. And then why cholesterol then? Why did they go after cholesterol? And then what's the risk of treatment? And that's really the mind-blowing thing of this kind of idea where, look, we can fix this thing, but we're going to damage all these other things and make you feel way worse. So we're going to talk about that, how it screws up your hormones, guarantees like low vitamin D, low testosterone, low estrogen, low progesterone, and then you do the synthetic version of those, which then guarantee heart attacks. And we'll talk about why not cholesterol, and really what the breakdown of cholesterol really looks like versus what you typically are told or you get from your typical doc. Then we'll talk about some real causes, and then we'll talk about some real treatments here. So what really causes heart disease and what really fixes heart disease. Because, you know, the rest of the world, they got this figured out pretty well. America, we seem to not do so well with that. So, all right, so let's start off. What the hell is cholesterol? And who cares, right? Who cares? So I got this little chart here. And cholesterol, and look, this is the cool thing about the using the computer, is it's already righted. So you can see here, you have cholesterol. There you go. Cholesterol is made 80% by the liver, 20% by your diet. It makes a hormone called pregnenolone, and think of like like it's pregnant, so it makes all the rest of these hormones. That makes progesterone, and progesterone is your feel-good hormone. If you want to feel good and womanly and awesome, even as a guy, if you just want to feel like great all the time, you probably ought to have some progesterone, which is cortisol, or sorry, which is cholesterol. But progesterone gets stolen as cortisol, but cortisol by itself is a cholesterol hormone. So if we want to be able to deal with stress, we have to have cholesterol to make cortisol. And then over here, this DHEA, that's your anti-aging hormone. That's the largest amount of hormone in your whole entire body. And so that's what keeps you young and vibrant and just full of health for the longest period of time. So those people that look like they're younger than they are, like this guy, right? I don't look like a day over 60 now, right? Nobody knows I'm 60. See that? So then, there you go. That DHEA is as a precursor to testosterone. And testosterone is really pivotal here because that is like your sex drive. For men and women, we all make the same hormones because all men start as girls. So we have all the same stuff here, right? Just different places. So the testosterone for men and women is that get up and go in life. And so if you want your get up and go to get up and, your get up and go has gone up and went. Is that right? I think that sounds right. No, wait, that's not right. If you want your get up and go to be gone, then mess with cholesterol. But otherwise, you want lots of testosterone. And that's why when you look at this chart over here, that anti-aging feeds directly into testosterone, which keeps you active and reproductive and strong libido and a good drive. So when that alarm goes off in the morning, you jump out of bed and you get going and you're ready to do it. And then the last thing is it makes estrogens here. So you got estrone, estril, estradiol. Those are, two of them are weak, one of them are strong. You want the weak ones to be dominant unless you're going through puberty. So now cholesterol then is this molecule that's made 80% by the liver, 20% by your brain, and then it makes progesterone and testosterone and cortisol and DHEA. So if you lower cholesterol, you lower testosterone. And they got a whole new disease now called low T for that, right? We lower progesterone, we lower estrogen, we lower cortisol with our ability to deal with things. And so very quickly things start falling apart when we do that just because we're screwing up hormones. The other one that most people don't know is cholesterol is vitamin D. Vitamin D starts out as cholecalciferol in the skin, and then it goes to the liver, becomes 125, and then goes to the kidneys, becomes 25 OH, cholecalciferol. But that comes from cholesterol. So if you lower cholesterol, you lower your ability to make vitamin D. That protects you against 100 different cancers, and it keeps you feeling awesome. So, Brianna says, what happens when your cortisol is exhausted? Well, your cortisol, okay, so before it gets exhausted, it's going to wipe out all your other hormones. So if you impair your ability to keep up with your stress by lowering cholesterol, then it is going to distill all your progesterone, all your testosterone, all your anti-aging hormone. It's going to happen that much faster. People that don't have their shit together and can't deal with the stress are going to be hormonally exhausted. People who impair the cholesterol production to make those hormones to keep up with that exhaustive lifestyle are going to be screwed big time. So I hope that answers that question. And then Gina, I don't know. The beard's gone. I look like I'm 12. I'm going to try this for a while. I don't know. So we had the big beard, mustache, shaved face controversy. Like 300 people chimed in whether I should shave my beard off. And half the people said yes, the other half said no. So I said, screw it. So I did a mustache, and then people said absolutely no. It was horrible. It was really bad. So that's right. My friend Shanna liked it, and that's all that mattered at that time. All right. So we want cholesterol. Cholesterol is from the word chol, so think like gallbladder. And 80% of your brain is made of cholesterol. In fact, 20% of every cell in your body is made of cholesterol. So every time you turn over these cells all the time, trillions a day, you have to have cholesterol to replace those cells. That's kind of like the same idea as like fat makes us fat. Fat does not make people fat, and fat does not cause heart attacks. Inflammation causes heart attacks, and we'll talk more about that stuff later. But fat is either going to reverse inflammation or cause inflammation, but it doesn't make people fat. And we know that because the countries that eat the most fat are the skinniest countries in the world. The countries that eat the most sugar, America, are the fattest countries in the world, America, right? Although Mexico stole that from us a couple years ago, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get it back because nobody beats America, right? So all that feeling good disappears very quickly if we lower cholesterol. So that means not even just with statins, but that means with niacinamide. So a lot of people do niacinamide to try to get their cholesterol lower naturally, or red yeast rice, which is really the precursor to Lipitor, which is just as bad. So niacinamide is not harmful to you, except for lowering the testosterone and progesterone and vitamin D. But red yeast rice is just as bad as Lipitor or any of those other ones. And then Danielle asked, why do we need vitamin D supplementation then? Well, if we lower it artificially, then we need somehow to get more vitamin D. But most people, vitamin D you get like 4,000 to 40,000 IUs of vitamin D from about 15 minutes in the sun, right? So direct sunlight 10 to 2. So here's the problem. They say the sun causes cancer, so stay away from the sun, but that's how you make vitamin D. And then don't eat fish, because it might have mercury in there, so we don't eat fish. Plus, Americans don't eat fish anyways. We consume more coffee by pound than we do fish. So we don't, basically we guarantee that we will have low vitamin D, and so then people have to supplement because of that. Now the other thing is when they test vitamin D, they'll test it, it really should be peak of summer is like your best estimate, but you should have lots of vitamin D that stores, and then you use it through the winter time when you have less sun. And then all you do is this all the time, but that's not how it's treated in the US. So then everybody's told to supplement even when they don't have to. The other thing with vitamin D is that most people are wearing SPF or sunscreen, and again, that prevents you from getting and making vitamin D. We have double gas paned windows to prevent your furniture from fading with the UV rays, so then that blocks our vitamin D too, so we can't just stand by the window anymore and get it during the winter time. We have to go outside and be in the sun. So that's what we got to do. Yeah, so your vitamin D is super low, feeling weak and tired, sure, yeah. So, there might be a time when you want to supplement, and if you do supplement at least 5,000 IUs of vitamin D, You don't want to do those mega dose ones, but really you want to just a systematic approach to it. But really the answer in the end should be, why the hell is my vitamin D so low when I have a body that should function? So we understand the mechanisms by which we create vitamin D, and what are we doing to interfere with those mechanisms? And then Brianna said 20% of the cholesterol is made in the brain. Is it possible there's something going awry when cholesterol levels are above average instead of the liver? So, well, 20% is through diet, and then 80% is made through the liver. So maybe I said that wrong earlier. So it's not made in the brain. 80%, about 60 to 80% of the brain is fat and water. So basically the whole thing's jello, and then we got a bunch of wires in there that it protects. Yeah, and so as Amy said, same thing. 15 minutes is a good amount of sunshine every day. Yeah, but no sunscreen. No sunscreen. So with cholesterol, the myth is, if we lower cholesterol, will we lower heart disease? And that's what they told us, but the commercials for Lipitor actually said at the bottom, lowering cholesterol has never been tied to lowering heart disease. Like, it literally is on the commercial. So, and that's because the truth is, we know lowering cholesterol does not lower heart disease. So the proof is in the pudding with this, because what you do then is you say, well, let's give a whole bunch of people this medication across the US, and we'll lower that cholesterol below 200. Then, if it's true, what will happen? Heart disease should vanish, right? Heart disease looks like this in the US. #1 killer, astronomical amounts of people dying from it, right? So early 1900s, we had not as many people dying from it, but it still was the #1 killer. And now we kill 18 times more people with it. So that's crazy. And now more women are likely to have a heart attack than guys. And so we have to retrain doctors because of this. So if we lower cholesterol, then we should have lower heart disease, but that did not pan out. So we did cause a lot of problems, though. Oh, I got a chart here too. This is heart disease. So you can see here's heart disease in the 1900s. There it is. And then boom, I can't. It's the opposite on my screen here. So then it goes, skyrockets up. I can't draw that. But that's how all those diseases are that we talk about. Like every lecture I do, it's we barely had any, we make a change, we cause a sudden epidemic, and then we maintain that epidemic. So, man. Okay. So is this an American phenomenon? Maybe it's just Americans have vitamin D and cholesterol problems. Maybe it's only our American bodies that respond to this. But there's what's called the paradox. And whatever country you talk about, that becomes the paradox. So cholesterol is higher in France. The average is 250. And they have 70% less heart attacks than the United States. Something like Poland, they have far less heart attacks than us, but they have higher cholesterol. Italy has higher cholesterol and 35% less heart attacks. Japan has substantially higher cholesterol and substantially less heart attacks. And same thing with Australia, 75% less heart attacks, but yet higher cholesterol. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? If cholesterol is high and it causes heart attacks, then those countries should all have lots and lots of heart attacks, not 50 to 70% less heart attacks. So that's the first myth, is it's not true. It's absolutely not true. So you always want to look outside ourselves to figure these things out. So we call that a myth, or not a myth, the paradox. So why does Switzerland have higher heart disease, or I say have lower heart disease but higher cholesterol? Well, that's a paradox. So apparently only God hates Americans and uses cholesterol in America to kill Americans. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't think it's true, right? There is the other side to that, which is the countries that artificially lower their cholesterol have higher heart attack rates. So that number of 200, let's talk about that. So Amy said that, should people worry about cholesterol over 200? And of course not, right? Because if you lived in any other country, your cholesterol could be over 200 and you'd have a 70% less chance of having a heart attack. So the way that we approach this in practice is completely different. We take a more sensible approach to this. So you look at ER statistics now. In the emergency room, 70% of heart attacks are in people with below 200 cholesterol. So not only is it that lowering cholesterol will prevent heart attacks, but more people are having heart attacks have lowered their cholesterol. So then they backed off and said, well, okay, maybe it's not the total cholesterol. It's got to be something. Oh, the LDLs. Well, it's the LDLs. It's the LDLs. It's the LDLs. We're fine. It's the LDLs. So they said it's the low density lipoproteins. That's what's killing everybody. That's what we got to lower, right? So then we look at it and say, statistically, does that make sense? And come to find out, 50% of the people that come in for the emergency room for a heart attack have normal LDLs. So the number didn't work at all. And that's because cholesterol does not cause heart attacks. LDLs do not cause heart attacks. God did not make bad cholesterol to screw over Americans while the rest of the world celebrates. Or did he? So there is this idea of like good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. This is what it looks like when you break cholesterol down. All right, there we go. All right, so this is what's called a VAP. This is what we do with patients in the office if we really want to know what's going on with their cholesterol, not for the lowering it, but the actual effect of what's going on with that cholesterol. So we want to see the inflammatory reparative process that's going on. And you can see that through this number. So when you look at this, you can actually say, is there a lot of damage going on? Is there a lot of repair going on? So we'll go through these. So first of all, you can see your total cholesterol, which we said we want countries that have a high 250s have 70% less heart attacks. Then we have the HDLs. Right there. So those are high density lipoproteins. And all that means is really that they got a lot more protein than fat in them. And those are the ones that are truly cardioprotective. HDLs truly, truly, truly are cardioprotective because they're antioxidant. However, not all the 1, 2, or 3 HDLs are truly cardioprotective or as protective as the other ones. So the large, fluffy HDLs actually are the most cardioprotective. The small HDLs are the least cardioprotective. So you can have a high HDL in the 60s, but is it protecting or not protecting, right? So you'd want to know the size on that. And a VAP cholesterol will tell you that. Then in the middle here, we have the LDLs, which are the low density lipoproteins. But when you break those down, there you go, you can see there's an A pattern and a B pattern. And the large fluffy LDLs, the low density lipoproteins, so they got a lot more fat than muscle in those, like not muscle, but protein. And with that, those are the large fluffy ones are actually the ones that are repairing the heart, just like the HDLs. So again, LDLs are not bad cholesterol. The large fluffy ones are preventing you from having a heart attack or a stroke. So then we look at, and that's type A pattern, right there. So if you look at pattern A, that's great. You can have really high LDLs, and they are protecting the hell out of you. But there's also the B patterns. The B patterns are the small, dense ones. Just like we said with the HDLs, the small ones were not as cardioprotective. But the small LDLs are actually repairing damage to the heart, which means if they are elevated, we don't want to artificially lower them. We want to fix why we have so much damage. And I love this example because this is kind of what the main point of this. Let's say someone comes in my office and they scratch my drywall and they ruin it, right? I'll call a spackle guy. He'll come over and he'll spackle plaster over that crack, right? Then I'll call a sanding guy. He'll sand it all back down to normal. And then I'll call a paint guy, and that guy will paint it. And I say guys because the woman owns the building, so you know what I'm saying. So with that, what we do with the LDL smalls are we are repairing those scratches in the cardiovascular system. So if we keep scratching that wall and just plaquing back up, well, then we actually get accumulation of that, and then we call that arterial plaque. But it is not LDL pattern B's fault. It is doing what it was designed to do, which is repair the damage you're causing by your lifestyle. So how do you fix that? Oh, we just artificially lower cholesterol. Let's just get rid of all the cholesterol. You don't need that at all. Forget about it, right? Oh, I know what I did. We could fix the actual problem, right? So the other thing that's different from the American diet versus the European diet or the rest of the world diet is there is very specific food that we're supposed to consume that actually goes and sands those walls back down after LDL-B has repaired those walls. And so it's the same as you would do for your home, but we don't do it for our cardiovascular system, mainly because nobody tells you about this. So I'm telling you about this. So if LDL small are elevated, then the treatment is lifestyle. And that's typically why it's never addressed, is because there is not a medication to lower that. If you damage your cardiovascular system, you have to stop damaging it. There is no medication that's going to undo that. There's only a medication to lower your testosterone, progesterone, vitamin D, cortisol, and anti-aging hormone. There is not one to fix what you're doing in your lifestyle. You have to make those changes. Let's see, Danielle says, oh, Danielle, I answered your question. All right, so she says, what causes plaquing? That's exactly what causes plaquing. Plaquing is caused by, I'm going to cause a whole lot of damage. I'm not going to repair that damage because I'm not going to eat the foods that deplaque those arteries. And we'll talk about that list at the end. So then with that VAP cholesterol test, that's one that we typically do. You should ask your doc if they'll do it. If you have any kind of cholesterol concerns, you should really always get that VAP cholesterol. And that VAP stands for Vertical Analysis Protocol or something. Like, it's the most ridiculous name that doesn't really tell you what the hell's going on. But a VAP, and they have, Quest calls it a different thing now. Berkeley had a different name there. So, you know, but they should know what VAP is. With that, that is going to tell us all those breakdowns of those cholesterol molecules. Now, on your report, though, if you do have high triglycerides, yeah, that's a problem, because triglycerides are a measurement. It's tri, which is 3, so it's 3 glycerols on 1 fatty acid. It is sugar converting to fat. If it's elevated, that means you can't convert sugar to fat fast enough, and it's building up in the body, and that's a problem. That's where you get like that diabetic kind of symptoms where you're killing arteries and nerves and tissues. Oh, and make sure you guys share this too, if you will. That becomes the problem. Who is it? I got sidetracked there. There's a skeleton behind me. So let's say if there is a number that's high on the VAP, right? So if we actually look at that and we say, well, what if it's type A or type B pattern? Well, what if HDLs are low? What if LDLs are high? What if LPA is high? What if triglycerides are high. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Right? Because there's no typical cardiovascular recommendations that are going to be given by a cardiologist for these things, unless it's like Dr. Sinatra or something like that. But the main lifestyle ones, get this, are very, very simple. To fix heart disease, it's very, very simple, which is why your cat doesn't have to figure out how to fix heart disease. A donkey doesn't have to figure out heart disease. A sloth doesn't have to figure out how to fix heart disease. The vast majority of the people in the world don't have to figure this out. Oh, but we have to figure it out. So we don't live a lifestyle that's consistent with life and longevity, and we have to pay consequences for that. So the way we correct VAP or correct any of those problematic areas is we radically change the diet and the lifestyle. So what we want to fix all those across the board is a healthy fat diet. So fat does not cause heart attacks. We talked about that. They tried to blame that in the 70s, and that didn't work. Low fat just turned to high sugar, which then turned to high sugar and high fat, and no exercise and all that. But a high healthy fat diet is what you want. So that's like avocado and actually in fruits and vegetables and grass-fed beef and free-range chickens and wild-caught ocean fish. That's what you want. Those are going to be high omega-3s, nuts and seeds, basically fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, berry, legumes, greens, and healthy meats. So that's how simple it is with that. That's your high healthy fatty diet. High omega-3, same thing. Glutathione is a big part of that too, but glutathione is from B6. It converts S-acetylhomocysteine to glutathione through B6. B6 is in beans, greens, and fermented foods. So that's not what Americans eat. Also, with homocysteine being a true actual cardiovascular marker, kind of cardio-CRP and maybe LPA as a genetic risk, those are all, well, at least those are all just inflammatory responses, right? But with homocysteine, it is directly lowered by methyl B12, which is from beans, greens, and fermented foods, and through folate, which is from beans, greens, and fermented foods, and through B6, which is from beans, greens, and fermented foods, right? So that's how simple that is to fix if you eat beans, greens, and fermented foods. If you don't, then you got to take a supplement. If you take a supplement, take methyl B12 and put it under your tongue. Take like reduced B6, like P5P or something like that for paroxetine. And then for folate, probably ought to take a methylfolate or a methylene tetrahydrofolate or something like that, but reduced folate. And then you want a healthy carb diet. So again, in America, we're like, gotta be low carb or you're gonna get fat. Like in Asian, like every other country in the world that survives off carbs, because it's not carbs, it's what we do to the carbs in America that makes it bad. So in the rest of the world, you can eat carbs. In America, it screws you. And there was a great show called How's It Made? And they were showing that here's brown rice, it goes in the machine, here's how they shuck off the brown part, fan blows it over here, and then out comes out polished white rice, right? So this is just pure sugar. And he's like, this is what you get, and this is awesome, and look how beautiful it is, right? But then the dude says, well, where'd all the brown stuff go? And he says, oh, that's so nutrient dense and it's so full of vitamins, man. It's over here, and we feed it to cows. Well, so the cows get the nutrition and we get fat. So that makes no sense whatsoever. And then niacin-rich foods, like we don't want to take niacin, but niacin-rich foods are really good. And once in a while, I mean, we have patients sometimes that, like, I need to get my cholesterol to a certain point for doing labs for my insurance. And so we might tailor a little treatment plan to try to get it there healthy, and then just get their insurance cheaper and then go back to eating super healthy and living a great lifestyle. The other thing, like especially HDLs are one of those things there's not really a medication for. So HDLs are true lifestyle indicators. And so healthy fats, like nuts and seeds, right, and movement. And that's a key one too, is making sure that you're constantly moving so that way you get a need for these HDLs to protect you. So the solution for these are really simple. I mean, they're aerobic exercise for low HDL, so you got to move more, do more. I mean, people drive to a gym to walk on a treadmill. It doesn't seem right. I know, like with my running, so I've been doing the Couch to 5K, so I'm doing that Tough Mudder in a couple months. 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now. And you know, that holy crap, that was so like simple to start out doing, and you know, it's very doable. But it was way better than sitting on my butt all the time telling people how to get healthy. So try anything that just helps you breathe a little bit faster. So some people, just walking a little bit faster to where they can't have a real conversation maybe, that'll actually burn energy 36 times faster than lifting weights or walking slow. So once you have to breathe harder, we call it aerobic, and the aerobic part breaks down sugar, fatty acids, amino acids, and makes 36 times the energy, 36 net ATP. So how the hell did we end up here, right? We have a drug, and it's called Lipitor, and there's the same things, they're all statins. But how did that come about? And what's interesting is there was a scientist, and this was on NPR Science Friday once, and there was a scientist that was trying to figure out what he could do to lower cholesterol. So when you want a medication, you look at nature and see what nature already does, and then you synthesize and patent that nature and sell as medication. But he looked at all these different bacteria, and he couldn't get anything to work. All these different molds, fungus, yeast, nothing was working. And then he did 3,000 experiments, and none of them worked. And then he tried red yeast rice, which is just a spice that they kind of use in Asian food. And it lowered the cholesterol. So that's what Lipitor, the first medication, was built off of. But that number 200 that they're trying to get under, that was not established because of peer-reviewed literature, research, evidence-based, best practices, nothing. It was 8 doctors who got together and decided that's the new number, and they were all directly financially tied to a new company that was going to come out with a drug to lower that cholesterol. That seems right. So that's where you get that number from. It's not based off anything. Otherwise, we'd look at other countries and say, well, let's have their cholesterol because they have fewer heart attacks. Or if you look at, I made a database a long time ago for age and gender specific lab values. And what was amazing to me was not too long ago, 250 to 300 was normal based on certain age groups in the United States. And we have fewer heart attacks. So the number goes down, but the heart attacks go up. It doesn't seem to pan out with that. So how did Lipitor even get approved? And one of the interesting things is to get approved, you have to have, I think, at least 2, this has been a long time since I lectured on this, but I think it's 2 studies that prove you're better than placebo, which is doing nothing. But nothing still works a lot of the time. So nothing often works better than a lot of the top medications that are out there, like Seroquel, right? So in the study, they had 100 patients, and the group without statins, 3 people died in that study. With statins, only 2 people died. So it was 1% success rate there. So that's awesome, except you get a 5% chance that you'll end up with a permanent muscle wasting disease. So 1% chance it will possibly maybe prevent a heart attack. 99% that it won't. But you get a 5% risk of permanent muscle wasting disease. So then you look at all the other risks that comes with this. And this is where it gets really messed up. So this is the pathway by which they block. So they take statins and they block this pathway because it leads down here to cholesterol. So to block this cholesterol production, we shut everything down. The problem with that is we shut down the process for CoQ10. And CoQ10 is how you make energy. So the side effects from CoQ10 being decreased by the statin medication is going to be chronic fatigue syndrome, congestive heart failure. Well, that seems well worth it, right? I mean, it's not going to get rid of my heart attack, but I can get congestive heart failure. Seems like a win-win. And, of course, chronic fatigue, that's nice. And then mitochondrial mutations, because of the lack of CoQ10, you end up with lack of energy, chronic disease, diabetes, myopathies, which is muscle disease, and cognitive dysfunction. So one of the most important features that we see in patients that start taking statins is that they end up with mental decline, like they become senile, and then we got to put, mom in the nursing home or something like that. But once they go off the statins, more often than not, we see them just clear up. And it's it's not a miracle. We're causing them to be like that. So then we have the dolichol pathway. So the dolichol pathway right here is blocked. And the problem with that is that that's how the neuropeptides function in the brain. So every thought, every sensation, every emotion is mediated by these neuropeptides. And we now have blocked their ability to work. So we have personality and thought pattern changes in that patient. And then the inhibition of glycolysis, which is how the brain uses glucose in the presence of B1 to break it down and to make energy so you have brain function. So it basically dumbs us down or kind of like ages our brain with that. And then you have the TAU pathway. And this TAU pathway, right there, that's one of the most notorious ones. Because with this one, you start really changing the effects of the neurosystem. So you can end up with ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. You end up with Alzheimerism. So Alzheimer's is caused by neurofibrillary tangles amyloid plaquing from like mercury in your teeth and vaccines and mercury in food and environment and that kind of stuff. Because the University of Calgary School of Medicine actually showed that in a live cell study, like 20 years ago now. It was a pretty awesome one. But they actually could cause neurofibrillary tangles, amyloid plaquing, just by introducing the amount of mercury you would absorb from a dental filling with amalgam fillings. So Alzheimerism is something that presents like Alzheimer's, but isn't the actual damage. And then frontal lobe dementia with the TAU pathway being blocked. Frontal lobe is this part in the front. It's executive function. And so very quickly when that patient takes statins, you should notice that they start having cognitive changes within their executive functioning. So they may not be able to balance the checkbook anymore, or kind of figure out the way home anymore, or make executive decisions for themselves. And so that's when it's like when you put grandpa in the nursing home so he can keep taking his statins. Multiple system atrophy, which is great, especially if you like muscle wasting. So that's great. General muscle wasting, so then you can't do much, and then you get diabetes, and then you actually have a heart attack. That's great. Then you have Parkinsonian isms. So that's because it's messing up the dopamine pathways through the TAU pathway. So that's great. It's just great. And these all seem like great ideas. Just great ideas. As long as you have insurance. Otherwise, it's bad ideas. And then it messes with the glial cell process. And glial cells are like the cells that kind of glue the brain together. Think of like Jell-O, how it sticks together. And when you mess with that, you get amnesia, confusion, disorientation, forgetfulness, and senility. So it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And then the neuropathies, because you end up messing with the selenoprotein pathways, then you get these neuromyopathies, which means the nerves mess up, the muscles mess up, and it all falls apart. But nobody cares because you can't remember in the first place, and they're just going to stick you in a home, so keep taking your statin. So it's always the cost-benefit ratio. I could take this drug that will not prevent heart attacks. In fact, it will make me higher risk of having a heart attack. Doesn't address why we have heart attacks, but I could get Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and forgetfulness and amnesia, and feel tired all the time, get congestive heart failure. It basically sells itself. I mean, come on. Who would not buy that? It's kind of like Chantix, right? Chantix commercial. I spit out my drink when I was watching that. It said, side effects may include night terrors. Freaking night terrors. Like, that sells itself. Who doesn't want night terrors? That should stop you smoking. Nothing like Freddy Krueger, right? In your dreams to make you want to wake up and be like, I don't want to smoke anymore. So, it doesn't prevent heart attacks. It will cause permanent muscle wasting disease, whole host of problems, lower all your cholesterol hormones, make more heart attacks, more strokes. So what's the real cause? Who knows the real cause? You guys have been awfully quiet. Is this really live still? Because Danielle posted hers, and I haven't seen anybody post anything yet. I should start asking more questions. What is the real cause of heart disease then? Who can figure this out? And we'll go over a whole list, but in general, there's one. Is that broken? I think it's broken. And if you guys post stuff on here, and I don't get to it during the video, I'll fill that in later. I'll go back through and answer all those questions too. So don't hesitate to ask as many questions as you want on there. This is what this is all about. So with our patients, we always want to say, what's the actual causes? How do we fix this? And these are the actual causes. So we said inflammation. Let's see, can we see that? Okay. So with this, let's go down that list. So we have low omega-3s. That's a pretty American phenomenon. We high omega-6, low omega-3, so we get things like arrhythmias and irregular heartbeats and heart attacks and strokes and inflammation. Omega-3 is an anti-inflammatory, where omega-6 is an inflammatory. And the ratio should be about 1-to-1, maybe 1-to-2. But the American ratio for our diet is for every one anti-inflammatory fatty acid we eat, omega-3, we get 40 times the inflammatory omega-6s. So we don't eat omega-3s, which is fish and nuts and seeds, so we should have heart disease. High insulin levels, and the high insulin levels that's because insulin is high, secondary to glucose being high, and that's because we eat about 150 pounds of sugar that's added to our diet, or things that rapidly convert to sugar. So we should have lots of insulin. Plus, we eat really high glycemic foods. So your breakfast cereal sugar, the milk sugar, the jam is sugar, the toast is sugar, the juice without sugar, or juice without fiber sugar. So we eat sugar, 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 and that's a healthy diet for Americans, right? But it's going to jack up your insulin. Your sugar is going to crash, and then you're going to use cortisol and epinephrine to raise that back up to feel slightly normal. Then you're going to have anxiety. It's going to be a mess. America. Then we have high glucose under that. And high glucose is the exact same thing, right? We're just eating sugar. So like maltodextrin that you see in ingredients, that's sugar plus sugar plus sugar. And then low vitamin D, and we talked about that. If you don't go out in the sun, and the sun makes vitamin D, that's going to be a problem. Then you have high homocysteine. And we talked about that too. The high homocysteine, hey look, I'm part heart, like that. The high homocysteine is because of a lack of B vitamins. So if we don't get enough B6 and folate and B12, then we don't reduce homocysteine, and then homocysteine truly starts becoming a cardiovascular marker and damaging the cardiovascular system, which then raises LPA and small LDL cholesterol. So the cure is eat things that have those B vitamins, which is beans, greens, and fermented foods. Low testosterone, so that's great because the statins actually lower the testosterone. High estrogen, and that's typically because of low progesterone, but also The estrogens are, high amounts of estrogens are found in dairy, just naturally. So astronomically high amounts of estradiol. Birth control pills, hormone replacement therapy. So in plastics, lotions, makeup, all the female stuff, that's great, right? So the Women's Health Initiative was stopped because by giving women synthetic estrogen, I think it was an increase of heart disease by 87% within the first year, depending on what they took, and basically guaranteed that women will have more heart attacks than men. And you guys did it. You're number one. Number one again. And then low nitric oxide. So, you know, you eat arginine, and then arginine stores as nitrous oxide in your tissue, and then guess how you release it out of your tissue? You go out in the sun. So if you don't go out in the sun, it's going to be low, you don't dilate the blood vessels, and then we end up with hypertension. So then we have inflammation, and Virchow back in the 1800s, before we even knew what was in blood, Virchow said all disease is inflammation. Fast forward to 2017, all disease is inflammation. So that's all those inflammatory things, and you can look at some of those specific markers like homocysteine, cardio-CRP, LPA, but the fix is the same thing, is stop living an inflammatory lifestyle, stop eating inflammation, eat anti-inflammation, an anti-inflammatory diet, and then all of a sudden that's not a risk factor for you. Or eat what everybody else eats in the whole entire planet. Then we have low HDLs. And like we said before, low HDLs are a product of not enough exercise or activity coupled with not enough healthy fats. And then we have oxidized LDLs. Well, there you go. Now we can say LDLs are bad, but only if they're oxidized. And they're oxidized because they don't have enough antioxidants to protect them from the oxidation or the radical oxidant. It's because we don't eat fruits and vegetables and nuts, seeds, berries, legumes, greens in dark, rich colors and fresh and raw vegetables that have full antioxidants in there to protect you against that cardiovascular disease. So if you don't eat antioxidants, then you don't get to antioxidize LDLs, and then they get oxidized, and then you get cardiovascular disease. But the cure for that is your diet. High triglycerides, which really that's just high sugar. Like we consume more sugar than we can convert to fat. So a healthy, you know, should be around 80. A vegan diet or vegetarian diet that's really good, not a sugartarian, but a vegetarian, maybe like 39, something like that. So triglycerides are great indicators of, am I eating a really high glycemic diet or am I eating pretty healthy? Low vitamin K, well, that's a unique one. We haven't talked about that. Low vitamin K. Does anybody know where vitamin K comes from? Probably not, because you guys aren't. Oh shoot! I had to scroll down. You guys have been asking all kinds of questions. Oh my God! I'm so sorry. So my thing was stuck at the top, so I was like, oh, well, nobody's talking anymore. Okay. Oh snap! All right, let me finish this, and I'll go through and see if I can answer a few things here. So I didn't realize it kept going. I'm sorry. All right. So vitamin K is from greens, and so those greens are anything that, you know, not only full of magnesium, but they're full of vitamin K. So that's your spinach and your kale and your chard and your beet greens and all those wonderful things. So Americans aren't going to eat a salad. That's crazy talk. Yeah, we're not going to do that. So fibrinogen is elevated because we don't eat enough omega-3s and we don't eat proteolytic enzymes. So things like the core of your pineapple is a proteolytic enzyme that helps break down things like fibrinogen. Nattokinase is a wonderful one. Streptokinase, lumbrokinase, serratiopeptidase. There's lots of good ones. But in your food, there's enzymes that will break down the fibrin, which then makes clots, and so these are clot busters. And then high blood pressure, which is caused by a lot of these things, especially high blood sugar, but mainly, I think you can kind of expect it's low volemic, hypovolemic hypertension. So we don't drink enough water and we drink too many diuretics, and then our body has to respond by squeezing blood vessels tighter to get the blood flow up to the brain against gravity. So often the cure is water to start with, but if you're eating high glycemic, it's going to raise epinephrine, norepinephrine, which is then going to cause fight or flight and cause the constriction of blood vessels too. So it just becomes lifestyle. That's all. It's what you're eating, drinking, breathing, rubbing on your skin, how you react, all those things. So that's why it takes a lifestyle solution for that. So nowhere on there did we say cholesterol, but we saw lots of very basic lifestyle stuff. Yeah, so okay, so Amy says, so statins reduce cholesterol, progesterone, vitamin D, and should not be taken, question mark. Hell no, like take what your doctor prescribes you, but I wouldn't. That's, for me, hell no. So I want my testosterone. I want to be an alpha male when I'm doing those dishes and vacuuming my floor and taking care of my kitty cats. I want to be all amped up. What foods are nice and rich? That's a good question. It's the grass-fed, grass-finished, wild-caught. I have a list here, but I think it's yeah, wild-caught, free-range, organ meat, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, like same thing. So, and the one thing too, a caveat is never take niacin at high doses. It'll make you feel like you're having a heart attack. Like you'll be like the worst hot flash you've ever had in your life. I had a patient end up in the ER and was like, no, take niacin of mine if you're gonna mess with that. So, okay, so Brianna says, once Lipitor is stopped, is the damage reversed? No, not always. That would be the goal, is how get off those things, how can we reverse that damage? So theoretically, yeah, you can reverse the damage, but it's going to be a harder road. But something like rhabdomyolysis is a permanent muscle wasting disease. You know, can you get the Alzheimerism back? Probably. Can you get the dementia, senility? You should be able to get all this stuff back. If you cause congestive heart failure, maybe, maybe not. So that's where it becomes really screwed up, because we can cause some permanent damage to the body because of that. And then Carolyn McClune says, is it true that people who go on statins long term have memory problems? Absolutely. We talked about that. And typically once they go off, the memory stuff comes right back. Our nurse, Sherry, she has her own practice now. She's pretty awesome. She actually had her mom was taking statins, and then she's going to have to put her in a nursing home. She just went downhill super fast. And then she convinced her mom to go off those, and then her mom got everything back. She's back to driving, living home, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, personally we've seen this, and with patients we've seen that. Yeah, and so Lee Norris, same thing. He kind of seconds that. All right, so you guys were saying inflammation? All right. All right, so I scroll to the bottom now. Okay, so the last little part of this too, before we stop then, is I want to tell you about a study. So I think it was New England Journal of Medicine. They came out with a study that was published in, or reproduced in Prevention Magazine, and it said 92% of all heart disease can be reversed or prevented by doing 5 crazy things. So this is how messed up. This is how simple functional lifestyle medicine becomes for me, right? There's 5 things that can reverse heart disease by 92%. 1, drink red wine. Whoa, we're not going to do that. We're Americans. We're going to drink beer and white wine and sweet red wines, right? We're going to drink sugar, which will cause hypertension, cause high blood pressure, cause a heart attack and stroke. So red wine is not only a social drink, but it's medicine. And typically it forces you to slow down, which you get additive benefit from that. Most people can't chug red wine unless they got a problem. And then have healthy weight to hip ratio. And so again, that was basically eat healthy and move more. Or if your waist is too big, just get a big old butt, right? That's how you do it. That's what I used to be working on, not now. No, not smoking. That's one of them. That's pretty easy. So that's 3. Gosh, I don't know. This has been 5 years since I've done this talk. I don't know if I remember the other 2. That's pretty bad. I have to look those up and post those later. So the hip the ways, not smoking, drinking red wine, activity, and what was the last one? Like, it was so simple. Oh my gosh. We'll have to look it up. I'll post those. They're on a different, I don't know why they're not on this one. But yeah, that's crazy. Like, it's crazy simple. Like, it's not that hard. And then things that are deplaquing that you can add to your diet, so things that will scrub those walls back to clean. So we've had patients that came in with plaquing in the arteries and then changed their diet, plaquing was 0, right? So it's awesome. We're always designed to reverse that disease. So CoQ10 rich foods, which is grass-fed, grass-finished, and healthy foods. Vitamin E, which is real foods. Lysine, which is real food. So lysine is rich in fruits and fish. Fish oils, which is from fish. Omega-3 fatty acids, which is from fish, flax, chia. Olive oil, which should be your staple oil for cooking. Ginger, and of course turmeric. So now there's tons of those. And then fiber is a huge one. Fiber scrubs those arteries clean too. So they make these wonderful chemicals as derivatives. So the solution is very, very simple. It's just lifestyle management. That's all it is. If you want to stop having heart disease in your family, stop living like the people in your family. Start living like people in other countries. So change what you eat, you drink, you breathe, you rub on your skin, how you stress. Change your lifestyle so you can then fix or prevent heart disease, right? That should really be the goal of all this. Yeah, and Amy says, oh, recommend a red wine? Doesn't matter, you put it in a bag. So I like Malbec, Shiraz, Syrah, even just like an Argentina red or something, or actually, I mean, Malbec's probably one of my favorites out of all those. Beaujolais is nice. Really, with wine, especially red wine, there's a documentary that came out, I think, called Uncorked, but it basically dispelled all these myths about wine. The idea that it has to be very expensive and all this, but what they found was that used to is red wines from like France and Italy were like the best. Oh, they were the best. Nobody's gonna beat them. And then Napa Valley came out with their wines. It was just like American wines are garbage. But when they covered the label, suddenly Napa Valley started winning. And then $2 Chuck came out, and that was $2 wine from you guys know it's the Aldi's brother guy. It's in Kansas City. It's not here, but there's a store. That's where hipsters go. But the guy who is the brother's one of all the other ones has Trader Joe. Yeah. So they have $2 Chuck, and so then they competed against French wines with that, and they won. $2 wine won. So the reality is, buy based on the label. That's what you should do. I go around, I look for $8 to $11 wine, and then I find labels that look appealing to me, and it sounds interesting, and that's what I buy. And that's really what it is. And what's interesting is you talk about the neurochemistry that goes on in your mouth. Like people say, well, this has an oki after birth, and all kind of has a nut sense, and whatever. I don't know what they say. I used to be a VIP waiter. We just make up stuff. But everybody's tastes are slightly different. And so you may not even taste the same thing that the other person tastes, which is pretty amazing. So they can say whatever they want. The reality is you're going to have different interpretation of that wine anyways. So buy what you like. And Brianna, Layered Cake, that was a great movie. I don't know, is that a good brand? Layered Cake. I think I might have bought that at one time. Yeah, Carolyn McClune, the same thing. Avoid sugar. Amy, thanks. Great talk. Hey, thanks, you guys. Time's up. Yeah, Trader Joe's. See, now you guys got it. Please share this video with your friends and family, especially if they have cholesterol questions. It's a big thing that can cause a lot of problems in people's families, church, community, all that. And it sucks. It just sucks that we do things that screw up people in an effort to try to fix people who didn't need that fix in the first place. And so My name is Dr. Patrick Garrett. Also, my number is 316-212-5429. So if you have someone that has cholesterol problems, they want to talk about that or consult about it, or if they want to change their lifestyle stuff, we do functional lifestyle medicine. So I'm glad you guys attended. Post some topics for next week also. I walked into this one a little blind. I've been trying to get research done at KU, and I was just like, what are we going to talk about tonight? So cholesterol myth, I love this topic because it can really change lives. So thank you guys for attending. Please share, like this video. Join us every week at Tuesday at 7 o'clock. All right? And it worked recording this by the computer instead of the phone, so that's amazing. All right. Talk to you guys later.